This week is special in a way that for the Muslim tradition, the month of Ramadan started. Our Muslim brothers and sisters are on a fast now for a whole month. Now I got to start out with that simple statement that fasting is not a biblical law. Nowhere in the Torah does it actually happen except for once, and that is when Moses came back from the mountain and saw that the people had made the golden calf, and he was all upset and God was all upset. So out of madness, Moses fasted. But that was never given as a law. Religious people have always fasted in all traditions, but the law of Moses did not have that. It occurs every now and then in the Bible, but the only time it occurs in the Torah, in the 5 books of Moses, is when he was mad at the people and God was mad at the people. But it wasn't really prescribed to them as a thing to do. God's people don't fast as God's people. They fast when there's a reason or an opportunity in life in general. Fasting is not a religious law, but it is dangerous sometimes to faith. It doesn't help faith all that much because it can be interrupting your focus. The prophets preach against fasting most of the time. They warn the people, don't do all that religious stuff. Worry about your poor and your needy and the widows and the orphans and the aliens. Do good. That's the fasting that God wants, is the way Isaiah puts it. Don't do your religious duties, do your social duties. That's way more important. So whenever fasting occurs in the Bible, it's not a pleasant and not a positive thing for the most part. Yet for some reason the church has, as all traditions, adopted it as a practice. And in our tradition it occurs twice per year in preparation for the major holidays. Traditionally, the season of Lent starts at Mardi Gras, Fat Tuesday, that last day where there's that big pancake supper, cleaning out your closets of all the fats and animal products. And then come the 40 days of Lent as a preparation of Easter. Now, nobody outside of monasteries does that. So who fasts during Lent? But traditionally, we remember that. We remember Ash Wednesday, when the time of solemn reflection begins, and we change something, some of us do. We do carbon fasts, drive less, exercising more, doing something different, being intentional about something. That's a way of recognizing that fast in our tradition. My favorite fast is that one before Christmas. Advent, the 4 weeks in preparation of Christmas, are traditional fasts, right? That's where gingerbread came from, because the monks couldn't eat anything, so they just had this very high, rich, nutrient-full bread at night. That was all they had in terms of nutrients. Now then we dipped it into chocolate, we started eating it during the day, and it turned into a 4-week feast as opposed to a fast. But we do have those reminders that the season of Advent is a season of fasting. Eating less, right? In preparation for Christmas. Think about that. So we're not very good at fasting, but it's part of our tradition somehow. Jesus was totally against it. As we just heard, it just makes people to feel too good about themselves. When someone does that righteous thing and that religious perfectionism, they turn into Superman and they are not real good people. Whenever you fast, Jesus says, do not look too dismal like the hypocrites. Because people like suffering out loud. See how good I fast, see how much I can suffer, see what good person I am. Yeah, don't do that. So for the most part, Christianity remembers fasting somehow, but we really gave up on it because that practice that could have been helpful, for the most part, turned into an outward distraction. So we got rid of it. But Islam, on the other hand, our young sibling in faith, they've kept it alive. And they've kept it alive on a solid theological footing. Because they are still connected to that source of what fasting should be about. What is so significant about the month of Ramadan? It is pretty much the same thing like our Advent or Lent in terms of a period of fasting that allows intentionality. And there are three ways in which Muslims are intentional for this month. Ramadan has three significant objectives: to promote nearness to God, to increase self-control, and to encourage charity for those in need. Three purposes in fasting. So how does fasting promote nearness to God? A couple of days ago, last Friday, we had a church outing to the mosque in Orem that they're building and the congregation that meets in the mall right now. And we learned that during the month of Ramadan, God is closer than any other month. Your prayer that you say this month counts as if you were praying every day for 84 years. That's powerful. So you should pray more this month because it counts as if you were praying 84 years straight. Same thing for reading your Quran, we learned. Every reading you do this month of Quran, it counts for 84 years of straight reading. That's a lifetime in one day. You can accomplish that now. I'm not sure where those numbers come from, but it makes clear that this is a special time and you should make it count because God is closer this month. That's a beautiful thought. And also we learned that the rest of the year Muslims have to work for their salvation. This month, God is simply present. This month, you can simply walk in the loving presence of God. From a church perspective, we would have to say, hey, that's Advent. That's Advent in its finest. Remember how you feel God closer during the month of December? Just those warm fuzzies that you have with all the smells and bells. You talk about God more. God is somewhat closer during those special times. And also, being in the presence of God, Advent says exactly that the kingdom is coming, that God is coming down to us, that God's kingdom is coming at the very last day. So God's coming closer. That is what those fasting times are all about. That the divide between human and divine, Christmas, is actually cracking, almost disappearing. Christ is coming. God is closer. Fasting is here. So nearness to God. And how does Ramadan help with self-control? As we learned in the mosque on Friday, there's an educational piece to fasting, and that is you'll learn to say no. You'll learn to say no to yourself. Saying no to others is easy. Saying no to yourself is a little harder. And you have the opportunity to look at some of your stupid habits and change them. You don't have to be victim of what you do and what you are. This is a time to take responsibility. They had a physician preaching there, so his point became, it's a good time to quit smoking. Okay. Sharpening the skill of self-control during a special time that you observe fasting or doing whatever makes it stronger for the rest of the year. We do that when we get intentional about Lent. When we learn to, I could read more, I could exercise more, I could drive less, I could give more, I could do stuff, I could leave stuff out, I could skip chocolate. When you practice those things during a special time of fasting, that makes you stronger in your value of self. And the third question is, where does charity come into all of this? Well, on Friday we learned the math. Every dollar you give to a needy person during this month of Ramadan, we learned in the mosque, counts as if you did that for 84 years straight. We've heard that number before. Every dollar you give counts for giving a dollar for 84 years every day. That amounts to $30,660. Now that's a nice return of investment. Think about that. Give a dollar, and it counts as if you had given $30,660. Now, Muhammad was a salesman, right? So he's all about return of investment. So it makes sense to have a month that increases return of investment. And we know that too. We don't have a reward in heaven for giving. We don't believe that. But there is something about preparing for a major holiday with an intentional period of time that also works toward giving. Why do people give so much in December? Yeah, it might have to do with the tax year ending, but it might also have something to do with a more generous spirit, a more loving heart. Warm fuzzies? I don't know. People give more during November and December than any other time of the year. That's where all the most successful fundraisers are. That's where we love feeding the homeless and sheltering kids and doing all the good stuff. During summer, we let them starve and let them be homeless and let them die outside in the street. But in winter, we want to shelter them. Not because it's only cold, because that works in the southern hemisphere as well, where it's warm during winter. There is something about the time of Advent, that fast in preparation of Christmas, that opens our generosity and that increases our giving and our charity. We do that during Advent because the message of Advent is the kingdom of God is coming. Christ is coming near, and there shouldn't be hungry people. There shouldn't be homeless people in God's kingdom. And we want to recreate that image and allow God's peace into this world by making part of it happen symbolically. We need it to be God's world, and we need to work for it, and we do that during a time of intentionality. So can you discover something in the Ramadan tradition that speaks to you? May have been the weirdest thing to ever think about it. But it has challenges that should speak to us. Engaging in something physical as a spiritual practice. Thinking about what you eat or what you don't eat or what you drink or what you don't drink. Really treating your body as if it were a temple. That's a challenge. How about feeding your body and fueling it with good foods instead of junk? That's a challenge. How about fasting without thinking health or weight loss? How about fasting for devotion? Or looking at food as a matter of faith in general. A gift from God for all of God's people, and we throw 60% of it away in the U.S. Is that right? Maybe your own fast could be a time to consider enabling others to eat at all or better. How does this perspective inform your attitude about Advent and Lent? Fast. 7 weeks of Lent, 4 weeks of Advent. And the cookies that you have. So we learned about nearness to God and an intentional spiritual practice. Now if you think Ramadan is the weirdest thing and we got nothing to do with it, think again. Because it's just a word. It's just a fasting period for people. Think again. Because when you're in that situation where you share what you do for Advent, I put up a tree in my living room. What? That sounds outlandish to someone who doesn't do that. When you talk to someone, oh, I went to church to have pancakes at St. Mary's because we do that to start the season of Lent. What? We have weird traditions. We have weird words for it. It's just we're used to it. And that piece of self-control, what would that feel like if on January 1st you would not have gained weight? Because the season of Advent is not one of overeating, but one of being intentional about what you eat. What if on January 1st you wouldn't have a huge credit card bill, but you would actually still be okay because you didn't overdo it with all the celebrating and spending and giving? Maybe reason is still okay, and maybe saying no to yourself and learning that constraint. And then we learned about charity. But the hard aspect about this perspective on charity is that giving is easy. Giving is easy. You just write out a check, bring some cans, and you can feel good about yourself, what you did for them. Right? Makes you feel good to give. So easy. But from a fasting perspective, you do the opposite. You don't necessarily give, but you learn to feel what it is like to not have that choice of eating. Limiting yourself and walking in the shoes of those who don't have a choice. That is a real challenging experience. And all of a sudden, fasting makes sense again. Whenever I go out to eat, I got a problem. I order a Coke, and every now and then the waiter would ask, "Pepsi okay?" And I would love to yell him in the face, "Hell no!" But for the most part, I say, "Okay." Because I have that choice to be picky. If I were to observe Ramadan the way Muslims do this month, I would have gone 15 hours without a bite or without a sip of anything. Sunrise to sundown. No food, no drink whatsoever. And when at the end of those 15 hours, from 5 a.m. to 10 at night, got to work on my math here. After that long period of time, you really don't care. Probably that one sip of water that you get, that very first sip after 15 hours of drought in your mouth, it's going to feel like heaven. Tastes like the best thing you've ever had, because you haven't had any of it all day long. It's an opportunity to learn appreciation. It's an opportunity to learn thankfulness. Ramadan Mubarak.